A football podcast for football fans by football guys. Welcome to the End Zone Experts.
Welcome back to the End Zone Experts, your one-stop shop for NFL madness and fantasy football glory. I am your host, Chris Knowles, and today we're going to talk about the massive blockbuster trade that happened a few days ago. We're talking about none other than the Pittsburgh Steelers trading for Seattle Seahawks superstar wide receiver DK Metcalf. And a few days ago, the football world was losing its mind. We're breaking down every angle of this deal, why it happened, what it means for both teams, and how it's going to shake up your fantasy rosters this year. We're going to give you 30 minutes of pure gridiron goodness coming your way. Guys, grab a coffee and let's dive into this, man. Let's set the stage a little bit with the trade details. The Steelers are sending a 2025 second-round pick to the Seahawks, along with a swap of late rounders, a sixth for a seventh. And in return, they are going to get DK Metcalf, 27-year-old Pro Bowl wideout who's been a human highlight reel since 2019. And Pittsburgh did not mess around. They signed him to a 5-year, $150 million extension. That's $30 million a year. That is one of the richest deals ever to a skill player. This isn't just a rental. This is a franchise cornerstone move for the Steelers. I personally think it's a great move, considering that they were in the playoffs last season, along with George Pickens. I think this is going to be awesome. That's a deadly duo. But first, I want to kind of rewind a little bit. The Steelers went 10-7 last year, same as Seattle, but got smoked by the Ravens in the wild card round. Their passing game was a disaster, 27th in the league per ESPN. And after trading Deontay Johnson, who seemed to not be able to find a home anywhere, they struck out on going after Brandon Ayuk and whiffed on a few others. General manager Omar Khan has been on a mission, and landing Metcalf is a huge win for him. Just kind of step back and imagine DK Metcalf on one side, George Pickens on the other. You've got two 6'4" freaks of nature who can out-jump, outrun, and out-muscle anybody. You add tight end Pat Fairmouth in the slot. You've got a pretty deadly trio there. This offense has some teeth. But, of course, here comes the million-dollar question. Who's going to throw them the ball? And we're going to circle back into that. Let's flip it back on the Seattle side, and it's a different story. The trades, the latest in a fire sale. Seattle shipped off Geno Smith to the Raiders. Tyler Lockett was cut, and now Metcalf's gone. That's 3 offensive pillars out the door in under 7 days. They've got 5 picks in the first 3 rounds of the 2025 draft now, but a second rounder and some late round scraps for a guy like Metcalf. That's pretty light. This dude's got 6,324 yards and 48 touchdowns since 2019. That's 11th and 5th among receivers in that span. Social media was screaming like highway robbery for Pittsburgh, and I'm a little bit inclined to agree. Seattle is somewhat in a rebuild mode, but did they sell low? Let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Metcalf actually requested this trade a few days ago, saying he wanted potentially a warm weather, a contender, a stable quarterback. And as we all know, Pittsburgh's freezing. They went 10-7 and now they have no quarterback locked in. Yet here he is signing long term in Pittsburgh. Maybe the money talked, or maybe he's buying into Mike Tomlin's grit, which you can't go wrong there either. Either way, it's a bold leap for a guy who could have held out for teams like I know Houston was mentioned in one scenario, but I don't think Houston wanted to pay that contract. You've got, I think maybe the Raiders could have been a potential fit there, but Seattle reportedly started with the first and a third round ask. That's per Diana Rossini, but settled when the market just didn't bite. And that's a true tough break for Seahawks fans because they're waving goodbye to a really good player in DK Metcalf, of course. I kind of want to play like a little game here, trade winners and losers. Starting with the winners, obviously Pittsburgh's at the top. They've got a legit wide receiver one for the first time since Antonio Brown's prime. Metcalf and Pickens are going to be a nightmare matchup. This is going to be pretty huge if they can solve the quarterback puzzle. This team's a playoff threat in a brutal AFC North. Another winner could be Russell Wilson. He is a free agent. He threw 29 of Metcalf's 48 career touchdowns in Seattle. Maybe a reunion could be a ticket for a late career resurgence for Russell Wilson. He played pretty decent in Pittsburgh. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to fill that void for sure. But I have liked what Pittsburgh has done. I've also seen some rumors, and my co-host Dave and I were talking a day ago about possibly. Don't be shocked if you see the Steelers try and trade for a guy like Anthony Richardson, who it seems the Colts are not fully or have fully given up on. I wouldn't be shocked there, though, and I kind of like that fit. On the flip side, who's losing this? Obviously, Seattle's offense, for one. They're down to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and trying to fill a wide receiver two hole with a quarterback like Sam Darnold, who did have some career resurgence in Minnesota last year. It's going to be tough moving the chains. That's for sure. An interesting one here now is also George Pickens. He might be a little bit of a loser in this as well because his targets are about to take a hit. And he has a fiery personality who could clash with Metcalf's alpha energy. The biggest losers, in my opinion, in all of this are Seahawks fans. Watching this team compete last year, and it seems like they're kind of hitting into this early rebuild kickoff with a little bit of a bargain bin return for a star like Metcalf. I will say a quick wild card winner in this is Arthur Smith. The Steelers offensive coordinator has been slammed for his run heavy schemes. 8th in rushing attempts last year, but now he's got no excuse. He's got good weapons on the outside now. He's just got to open up that playbook, or he might face the chopping block. But either way, excuses are kind of, they're flying out now. I want to now touch into the meat and the potatoes of all this. This is for all the fantasy football, uh, players out there. DK Metcalf to Pittsburgh is a fantasy earthquake. Starting with Metcalf himself, this guy's been a stud. He's had 66 catches, 992 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 2024, averaging 15 yards per catch, even with midseason MCL injury. Since 2019, he's 11th in yards, 5th in touchdowns league-wide. In Pittsburgh, he's the wide receiver 1, no question about it. But his ceiling's tied to 2 things: quarterback play and scheme. The Steelers' passing game was anemic last year. They were 27th in yards, and both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, obviously, Fields went to the Jets, Russell Wilson's in free agency. Wilson's the dream. He and Metcalf had chemistry for days in Seattle. I'm talking 1,200 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns. He had low-end wide receiver numbers. Metcalf might settle for 1,000 yards, 6 to 7 touchdowns, a high-end wide receiver 2, fringe low-end wide receiver 1. But Arthur Smith's run-first tendencies could cap him at 6 to 7 targets per game, down from 9 early in 2024 with Seattle. If you're drafting or trying to trade, be cautious. Obviously, bid low. The problem is, I talk a lot more dynasty than I do regular football. So being at 27, if you can get him for a second, grab it and go for it. But draft him mid to late 3rd round in redrafts. In dynasty, he's kind of a hold or buy, just depending on what that player's expectations are and what they want for him. George Pickens, he takes a hit here as well. He did lead the NFL with 18.1 yards per catch in 2023, had 59 grabs for 900 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2024. Now he's a wide receiver 2 behind Metcalf. They're similar, big, fast, deep threats. So target splits, his 64 yards per game could drop him to 50 to 60. I'm thinking around 60 catches, 800 to 1,000 yards, 4 to 6 touchdown. He's kind of a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 territory. 5th or 6th round in redrafts, and in dynasty, his value dips as he nears a contract year. It's going to be rough to kind of gauge him in dynasty this year. I think you can probably grab him for a little bit cheaper, maybe a 3rd or 4th, and a player. But I'll tell you now, some other Steelers to watch is tight end Pat Freiermuth. He had 43 catches, 452 yards, 7 touchdowns in 2024. Metcalf and Pickens stretching defenses might bump him to 50 catches, 500 to 600 yards with 8 touchdowns. He could be a low end tight end one. 8th to 10th round kind of guy I would take right there. And don't forget about Jaylen Warren, who now becomes the running back 1 there. I think I'm more comfortable with Jaylen Warren as a flex than I am a wide receiver 2 right now. But he had 30 catches, and that's not going to shift much. The quarterback is really going to be where we tie all this in, and it's going to be interesting now because tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, which opens up the free agency window of signings. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Steelers do right now because they don't have a quarterback on the roster. Wilson kind of makes a little bit of sense there, but I am in favor of going young. It seems like they have done that with Pickens, Metcalf, Warren. Why not go for a young guy like Anthony Richardson or one of my personal favorites, Joe Milton? I think that's a fantastic young quarterback that has tons of upside and potential. I want to turn our attention over to Seattle with Jackson Smith and Jigba, JSN. He's like the fantasy jackpot right now because he's the lone wolf. He had 66 catches, 848 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2024 as a wide receiver too. Obviously now with Metcalf, Lockett, and Geno all gone, he's a wide receiver 1 with 120 plus targets coming. Even with Sam Darnold there, that's 80 to 90 catches, 1,000 yards, 1,000 to 1,100 yards, 7 to 9 touchdowns. So he's kind of a low end wide receiver 1. If looking at in redraft, taking him second or third round, and in dynasty, he can push up there to a top 15 asset. I wouldn't touch any of the other wide receivers just yet in Seattle. But JSN is a guy I definitely would grab now sooner rather than later, because I think when he does start progressing through the season, his value is just going to skyrocket. I want to have some fun on this now. Pretend we're having a draft today for 2025 standard 12-team PPR league. I've got the 5th pick in round 1. I'm taking Christian McCaffrey. He's still the king. Round 2, pick 20, JSN sitting there, and I snagged him. Round 3, pick 29, Metcalf's on the board, and I grab him too. Round 5, Pickens at 53, flex appeal. He's mine. Fairmouth in round 9. Maybe getting a Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson or Fields in round 10. That's a Steelers, Seahawks, Jets kind of heavy stack. With JSN breaking out, it has a little bit of championship vibes in a way. But I'm more curious, like what's your dream lineup with these guys? Tell me what you guys would think with all this movement. Obviously hit me up on X at Chris Knowles NFL. Let's talk some fantasy lineups. A lot of moves and shakes, obviously. With all that being said, I was really trying to push this to at least 30 minutes, and we're now at the 20-minute mark. But that's kind of our deep dive into it. DK Metcalf's a Steeler. Pittsburgh offense, it's loaded now. It just needs a quarterback, obviously. I think that's going to be the real interesting case there, is what we're going to see with the quarterback position in Pittsburgh. I am all in favor now that again, I've mentioned this before, you've got young wide receivers, you've got a young running back. Going with the Joe Milton, a Anthony Richardson. I'm going to throw another guy out there too. I still like this guy, and that's Malik Willis with the Green Bay Packers. I thought it was very interesting. And, coming out of college, he had a lot of potential upside, and he went to the Tennessee Titans. At that time, it was Mike Vrabel who was the head coach. Mike Vrabel is a defensive guy. He loves to control the clock. He ran the hell out of Derrick Henry. He's a ground and pound defense, team, oriented team, I should say. So Malik Willis never really kind of fit his mold as a quarterback. So they dealt a lot with Ryan Tannehill. Malik Willis goes over to Green Bay, much better offensive scheme in Green Bay. Jordan Love goes out for 3 games, and the guy just balls out. I don't think talent was a question. I think it was scheme and fit. Those are my three guys, and in order, I would have to say Milton, Willis, and then Anthony Richardson. But I don't think you could go wrong with any three of those. If I'm Pittsburgh. I'm so sorry. Seattle, on the other hand, seems to be like in this trying to rebuild / be competitive. You with that happening, fantasy football drafts, they're definitely going to get a little bit more interesting. Metcalf, in my opinion, is a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Pickens drops now more towards a wide receiver 3 is where I would kind of feel a lot more comfortable with him. And JSN, I think he's kind of the star of this whole show. And I think Sam Darnold obviously is going to lock in to him a lot. I mean, he's the only game in town, let's be honest. So he's the one that really wins out of all of this. And then Metcalf behind him in terms of fantasy. It's just really going to be down to the quarterback mess that decides it all. I definitely want to know what your takes are. Let me know what you agree with, disagree with. Does this make Pittsburgh a contender? Or are they going to, take a step back? I guess it really just depends on the quarterback position. And did Seattle fleece themselves? It seemed like not enough, in my opinion, for a guy like Metcalf. But nonetheless, definitely tweet me at Chris Knowles NFL. Drop a comment. Send me your fantasy trades. I'm going to definitely read some of the best ones on the next episode. I just want to give a big thanks for everyone that tunes in to the End Zone Experts. Obviously subscribe, rate us, stick around. Off season's just heating up. I really want to say, this came as a small project. I was just kind of playing around and putting myself out there on social media, and it's now becoming a hobby of mine that I'm absolutely just enjoying. I love putting the graphics together. I like kind of building this whole, I guess, brand is what we're going to call it. But I really do appreciate all of you guys, everyone that follows me, everyone that likes, even the haters out there. It doesn't matter. I still have fun doing it. And again, I just want to say thank you, and tune in. We will have another video up short. And until next time, let's stay dominating those leagues, man. See you guys real soon, and I appreciate you.